Welcome back, everyone. We're kicking off today's deep dive with, well, a bit of a
A
twist.
twist.
Yeah, we're diving into Think Like a Spy by Julian Fisher.
Ooh, interesting choice. A lot of our listeners might be thinking, wait, hold on, I'm not trying to join MI6 here.
Right, but that's the cool thing about this book. It's not really about becoming a secret agent.
It's more about taking those spy techniques,
Hmm.
the observation, the info gathering, a bit of that deception even, and applying it to everyday life.
To become more successful, to be more persuasive, to even just understand people better. So, are you ready to unlock your inner 007?
I think everyone has a little bit of that inner spy just waiting to be unleashed. What I find fascinating is how Fisher breaks down these skills that seem so, exclusive to the spy world into practical steps anyone can take.
Yeah, like anyone can learn this stuff.
Exactly. It's about understanding the psychology behind it all, like why these techniques work, and then using that knowledge in your everyday life.
Okay, so let's jump right in then. The book talks about this spy mindset. It mentions things like curiosity, adaptability, even resilience. But honestly, those sound more like personality traits, not actual skills you can learn.
That's where Fisher flips the script. He argues that these qualities, they're not just something you're born with, you can actually develop them. It's like imagine training your mind to stay calm, cool, and collected under pressure, just like a spy in a high-stakes situation.
So it's like mental training, but for like real life.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And he even gives practical exercises, things like mindfulness and stress management, proven techniques to help you build up that mental toughness.
Okay, I'm starting to see how this could be useful. The book also weaves in these real spy stories to illustrate the concepts.
Oh, yeah. Those are fantastic. They make it all so much more relatable and engaging.
So we've got the right mindset, but how do we actually start thinking like a spy? What are the practical skills?
Well, one that really stood out to me, and it's crucial for any aspiring spy, is observation. Spies are masters of noticing details that most people miss entirely.
Right, they're always so hyper aware of their surroundings.
Exactly. Fisher breaks down observation into three core skills: active listening, environmental scanning, and decoding nonverbal cues.
Okay, I have to admit, active listening is a tough one for me. My mind tends to wander, you know? I start thinking about what I'm going to say next or get distracted by something else.
Yeah, that's a common struggle. But active listening is so crucial. It's not just about hearing the words, it's about truly absorbing the message without letting your own thoughts get in the way.
So no planning my response while the other person is talking. Just focus on what they're saying.
Exactly. You got to be like a spy trying to extract information. You can't afford to miss any subtle nuances, any inconsistencies in their story.
That makes sense. What about environmental standing? I feel like that's something I could definitely improve on.
It's a fascinating skill. Think of a spy, entering a room. They immediately notice the exits, potential hiding places, any unusual behavior. It's all about developing that situational awareness.
Things most people would probably never even notice.
Right. But for a spy, those details can be crucial, for safety, for anticipating opportunities, for just understanding the lay of the land.
So, like, if I'm at a networking event, I should be paying attention to not just who I'm talking to, but also who's around me, what's going on in the room, that kind of thing.
Exactly. And then there's decoding nonverbal cues, which is a whole other level of observation. It's about reading body language, those micro expressions that can reveal what someone's really thinking or feeling, even if they're saying something else entirely.
Like, if someone says they're fine, but their face is all tense and their body language is closed off, you know they're probably not fine.
Exactly. Those nonverbal cues are everywhere once you start looking for them. And learning to read them can be a game changer.
Okay, I'm ready to start practicing my poker face. But spies aren't just about observing, right? They're also masters at gathering information, going beyond just what they can see.
Oh, absolutely. Fisher calls it becoming an information ninja.
Love that. Sign me up for ninja training. But seriously, what are some of those techniques?
Well, he talks about elicitation, pattern recognition, and OSINT, which stands for Open Source Intelligence.
Okay, break it down for me. Elicitation sounds like maybe a bit manipulative, like something out of a spy movie.
It can be a little sneaky, sure.
Mm.
Elicitation is the art of extracting information through casual conversation. Instead of directly asking, you subtly guide the conversation in a way that encourages the other person to volunteer information.
So it's like instead of saying, hey, what are your travel plans?
Yeah.
You'd casually mention a trip you took and hope they'll reciprocate.
Exactly. Or you might even make a wrong assumption about something, knowing they'll likely correct you and reveal information in the process.
That's pretty clever. What about pattern recognition? That sounds a little less sneaky.
It is. Pattern recognition is something we all do, but spies are experts at it. They use it to analyze intelligence data, but you can apply it to anything, really. It's about spotting trends, anomalies, things that don't quite fit.
So it's like if I'm trying to, I don't know, figure out why my investments aren't doing so well, I could look for patterns in the market data to see if there's a bigger trend I'm missing.
That's a great example. Or if you're, noticing a recurring pattern of conflict in a particular relationship, you might use that information to address the underlying issue. It's about connecting the dots and seeing the bigger picture.
Okay, pattern recognition check. Now, what about this OSINT thing? Sounds a bit technical.
Sounds intimidating, but it's actually something we all do to some extent. OSINT is simply about leveraging publicly available information.
So like using Google.
It's more than just basic Googling. It's about being strategic, knowing where to look for specific information, how to piece together seemingly unrelated bits of data to create a clearer picture.
Like being a detective, but in the digital world.
Exactly. It's amazing what you can uncover with a little bit of digging. Think social media, news articles, company websites,
So it's like being resourceful, but online.
and all of this information. It can help you make better decisions, in your career, your finances, even your personal life. Knowledge is power, as they say.
Yeah, I'm starting to see how all of these skills can really come in handy. We've talked about the spy mindset, observation, and information gathering. What else is in this spy toolkit? What other secrets does the book reveal?
Well, there's one that's particularly intriguing and maybe a bit controversial, the art of deception.
Ooh, now we're getting into the cloak and dagger stuff.
It's true, spies are masters of deception, creating cover stories, manipulating perceptions. But here's the thing, understanding those techniques, even if you're not planning on becoming a secret agent, can be incredibly valuable.
Okay, I'm curious, but how do we use deception, ethically? We don't want to encourage people to lie and manipulate others.
Right, of course not. But there are subtle ways to apply these concepts, like the book talks about how spies use storytelling to enhance persuasion. They craft these compelling narratives to influence others, to achieve their goals.
So it's less about lying and more about like framing information in a persuasive way.
Exactly. Think about like a job interview. You want to present yourself in the best possible light, right? Highlighting your strengths and achievements. That's a form of storytelling, shaping the narrative to achieve a desired outcome.
I never thought about it like that. It makes sense, though. What about spotting deception? Surely that's a valuable skill for anyone.
Absolutely. The book goes into detail about how to identify those verbal inconsistencies, those body language red flags that signal dishonesty.
So, like, if someone avoids eye contact or their story keeps changing, that could be a sign they're not being truthful.
Exactly. It's about reading between the lines and being aware of those subtle cues, just like we talked about earlier with microexpressions.
This is really fascinating stuff. But there's another aspect of deception that I think is especially relevant today. In the digital age, maintaining privacy.
You're absolutely right. We're constantly sharing information about ourselves online. The book emphasizes the importance of safeguarding that sensitive information, being mindful of what you post, and protecting your online identity.
Because in a way, we all leave this digital trail that could be used against us if we're not careful, right?
Exactly. It's about being proactive, taking control of your online presence, just like a spy would protect their identity in the real world.
Wow, this has been eye-opening. So far, we've covered the spy mindset, observation, information gathering, even the art of deception. What other secrets can we unlock from the world of espionage?
Well, one area that's particularly relevant to building strong relationships, both personal and professional, is how spies approach building and sometimes breaking bonds with others.
Breaking bonds, that sounds a bit intense.
It can be. Remember, spies often operate in high-stakes environments where trust is a commodity. But even the techniques they use to build rapport, even when it's based on, less than truthful pretenses, can be insightful.
Okay, I'm definitely intrigued. What kind of techniques are we talking about?
Well, Fisher highlights techniques like mirroring body language, using empathy to create connections, and finding common ground to establish trust. It's all about understanding human psychology.
Mirroring body language. Do I, like, literally copy everything someone does?
Not exactly. It's more about subtle reflection. If the person you're talking to leans forward, you might subtly lean forward as well. It creates this unconscious sense of connection.
Huh, interesting. I never thought about that. And what about empathy? How do spies use that?
Well, for a spy, Empathy can be a tool to manipulate, but for you, it's about genuine connection.
Yeah.
It's about putting yourself in the other person's shoes, seeing things from their perspective, even if you don't agree with it.
It's about understanding, not judging.
Exactly. And when you truly understand someone, you can communicate with them so much more effectively.
Makes sense. What about this idea of finding common ground? Isn't that something we already do naturally?
We do, but spies take it to another level. They actively seek out shared interests or goals, even if those commonalities are, well, fabricated. In your life, it's about consciously identifying those shared values and using them to strengthen relationships.
So, if I'm trying to connect with a new colleague, I might look for things we have in common, like hobbies or career goals.
Exactly. It's about finding those points of connection, building that rapport.
This is incredible. It's like we're getting a crash course in human psychology, all thanks to the world of espionage.
Right. Who knew spies had so much to teach us about ourselves?
But I have to ask, what about breaking bonds? That sounds a bit more, well, spy-like.
It is, and it's not something we're, endorsing for everyday life, but understanding how spies sever ties can be insightful.
Okay, I'm listening.
It highlights the importance of recognizing when a relationship is no longer serving you and having the courage to walk away. Just like a spy might, vanish without a trace.
So it's about setting boundaries, knowing your worth.
Precisely. It can be a tough skill to master, but it's essential for personal growth.
This deep dive is really making me think differently about, well, everything. It's like we've been given this secret decoder ring for human behavior.
I know, right? It's fascinating how these techniques, developed in a world of secrets and shadows, can be so relevant to our everyday lives.
But before we go any further, I think we need to take a break. Let all this information sink in a bit. We'll be back soon with more insights from Think Like a Spy.
Okay, I'm back, and my brain is buzzing with all these spy techniques. We've covered observation, information gathering, even deception. But there's one thing I'm really curious about. How do spies, handle the pressure, make decisions in those crazy high-stakes situations they're always in? That's such a good point. Because even if we're not facing like life or death scenarios every day, we all have those moments where the pressure's on and we need to make a tough call.
Right, like when you got to think on your feet and there's no room for error.
Exactly. And Fisher, he gives us some really insightful frameworks for doing just that, drawn straight from the spy world.
Okay, I'm all ears. Lay those frameworks on me. I need to level up my decision-making game.
One of the key tools is something called a risk matrix. It might sound complicated, but it's actually pretty simple.
Simple is good, especially when I'm stressed. Break it down for me. How does this risk matrix thing actually work?
So basically, you're evaluating the potential consequences of your actions. Like imagine you're mapping out a grid, right?
Okay, I'm visualizing it.
On one axis, you list all the possible outcomes, both good and bad. And on the other axis, you assess how likely each outcome is. So by, plotting it all out, you can start to see which choices carry the most risk and which ones offer the biggest potential rewards.
Oh, I see. So it's like weighing the pros and cons, but more visual, more
Right.
organized.
Exactly. It helps you step back from the emotions of a decision and look at things more objectively, with a cooler head, just like a spy assessing a threat.
That's so helpful because I tend to get like emotionally invested in decisions, and then it's hard to think clearly.
And the best part, you can use it for any decision, big or small. Choosing a career path, buying a house, figuring out what to have for dinner. Risk matrix it.
Okay, that's going in my mental toolbox for sure. What about this other framework you mentioned? Game theory. Now that one sounds intense.
Game theory is definitely more complex, but it's super fascinating. It's all about anticipating how others will act in a strategic situation. Kind of like chess, but with real-life stakes.
So it's not just about making my own move, it's about predicting what the other player will do and then planning accordingly.
You got it. Think about a negotiation,
Right.
right? By understanding the other person's motivations, what they're likely to do, you can position yourself better. Increase your chances of getting what you want.
Makes sense in a business deal, but could I use it in my personal life too?
Oh, absolutely. Game theory applies to any situation where you've got multiple people involved. Trying to convince your friend to go on a trip with you. Game theory can help.
Wow, my mind is officially blown. I never thought I'd be applying spy tactics to convince my friend to go to the beach. But it's so cool how these frameworks, developed for espionage are actually relevant to our everyday lives.
It just shows that sometimes looking at things from a totally different perspective can be so insightful. And speaking of different perspectives, the book has all these amazing real-world spy stories that really bring the concepts to life.
Oh, yeah. Those stories are what makes the book so engaging, so memorable. It's not just theory, it's seeing these principles play out in high-stakes situations. I'm a sucker for a good spy story.
Me too. Remember that one about the double agent? The one who used, like, the thread on a button to pass a message?
Oh, yeah, that was crazy. Such a tiny detail, but it had huge implications.
It just shows how even the smallest things can matter, especially in a world where, information is power. And sometimes it's hidden in plain sight.
It makes you realize how much we probably miss every day because we're not paying attention.
Exactly. It's like developing this sixth sense for spotting those crucial details, the ones that most people would overlook.
It's like becoming a human lie detector.
In a way, yes. But more than that, it's about cultivating this heightened awareness, this ability to see the world with fresh eyes, to notice those subtle cues that can give you an edge.
I love that. It's not about being paranoid, right? It's about being more present, more engaged.
Precisely. It's
Yeah.
about being empowered to navigate those complex situations, make better decisions, and, sometimes even anticipate threats before they happen, just like a spy.
Okay, so we've talked about the mental framework spies use to make decisions under pressure, but I'm also really intrigued by this whole idea of building and breaking bonds, especially in those situations where trust is everything.
It's a fascinating area, for sure. And it can be a bit ethically tricky, right? Because spies, they use manipulation to build those relationships.
Yeah, that part makes me a little uncomfortable. I don't want to exploit people or anything.
Of course not.
Yeah.
But even those manipulative tactics, when you strip away the bad intentions, can actually reveal some really valuable insights about human connection, like how we build trust, how we form bonds.
Okay, I'm listening. What kind of insights are we talking about?
Well, take mirroring, for example. A spy might use it to gain someone's trust, under false pretenses, but you can use it in a genuine way to build rapport, to create a sense of connection,
Yeah.
just by subtly reflecting their body language.
So it's not about mimicking every move. It's about finding that subtle harmony.
Exactly. It's a way of signaling that you're on the same wavelength, that you're listening, that you're present. And that can be so powerful for building trust.
It's like a secret language of connection.
In a way, yes. And then there's empathy. We talked about it earlier in terms of observation, but it's also crucial for building relationships.
Right, because to really connect with someone, you have to understand where they're coming from.
Exactly. Spies use empathy to manipulate. But for you and me, it's about genuine understanding, putting yourself in the other person's shoes, seeing things from their perspective.
Even if you don't agree with them.
Especially if you don't agree with them, empathy is about bridging that gap, building that connection.
This deep dive is really making me realize that being a spy isn't just about the external stuff, the gadgets, the skills. It's also about internal qualities.
Mm,
Empathy, resilience, the ability to handle pressure.
you're so right. It's about becoming a more well-rounded human being, equipped to deal with whatever life throws at you.
And speaking of challenges, the book also talks about breaking bonds, which, to be honest, is the part that makes me a little uneasy.
I get it. It's not exactly a feel-good topic, but even understanding how spies sever ties, it can offer some valuable lessons about setting boundaries, protecting yourself.
Okay, I'm willing to hear you out. How do we learn from those, let's say, less than ethical tactics?
It's about recognizing that not all relationships are meant to last forever. And sometimes, for your own well-being, you need to walk away. Spies, they're masters of disappearing, cutting ties cleanly and moving on.
I can see how that would be crucial in a dangerous situation. But in everyday life, how do you know when it's time to walk away?
That's where your intuition comes in. You have to trust your gut feeling. If a relationship is consistently draining you, causing you stress, making you compromise your values, it might be time to reevaluate.
So it's about prioritizing your own well-being.
Exactly. Sometimes, the bravest thing you can do is walk away.
Wow, this is heavy stuff, but so important. This deep dive is making me rethink my whole approach to life.
I know, right? It's like we've been given this secret decoder ring for human behavior.
And now we have to decide how we're going to use it.
Exactly. It's about taking those spy principles, the ones that resonate with you, and applying them to your own life.
Okay, but before we get ahead of ourselves, how do we even start? It's easy to feel overwhelmed with all this information and not know where to begin.
That's a good point.
Yeah.
And, the key is to start small. Be patient with yourself. Pick one or two skills that really speak to you and start practicing them.
So it's like, don't try to become a super spy overnight.
Exactly. It's a journey, not a destination.
So if someone's, say, struggling with communication, they could focus on those active listening techniques we talked about.
Absolutely. Or if someone wants to be more persuasive, they could practice crafting compelling narratives or paying attention to body language.
And for someone who, I don't know, wants to make better decisions, they could try using the risk matrix.
Exactly. The key is to make these techniques a part of your daily life. Integrate them into your routine.
Okay, I'm feeling inspired and maybe a little bit sneaky. It's amazing how a little bit of spy wisdom can really empower us.
It really is. It's about tapping into that potential we all have to be more aware, more strategic, more in control of our lives.
Okay, before we wrap up this part of our deep dive, I just want to remind our listeners this is just the beginning. We've only scratched the surface of Think Like a Spy.
There's so much more to explore. So keep those spy skills honed. We'll be back soon with more insights.
It's funny, when you think about how spies are usually portrayed in movies and stuff, it's always like the super suave, James Bond type,
Yep.
gadgets, car chases. But this book, it shows a totally different side of espionage.
Right. It's not about the flash and the
Yeah.
explosions. Real spycraft is so much more, well, cerebral.
It's all about the mental game, being resourceful, thinking on your feet.
And honestly, those are qualities anyone can develop, right? Whether you're trying to, I don't know, outsmart a villain or just navigate your daily life.
You're totally right. It's like, in a way, we're all spies in our own lives, gathering information, making decisions, trying to achieve our goals.
We just don't always do it consciously, right?
Yeah.
Or strategically. And that's where Think Like a Spy really shines.
It gives you that framework, those tools to be more deliberate,
Mm.
more effective. Like, imagine approaching a, say, job interview, but with the confidence of a spy infiltrating a secret lair.
I love that analogy. Or even like navigating a tricky conversation,
Yeah.
but with the same finesse as a double agent, playing both sides.
Exactly. Or even just walking down the street, but with that heightened awareness of, a spy scanning for threats. Not because you're paranoid, but because you're just more tuned in.
It's about being present,
Yeah.
engaged,
Yeah.
in control.
Empowered.
Yes, empowered. And that's what I think is so powerful about this book. It's not about turning us all into like secret agents.
Yeah.
It's about unlocking that potential that we all have
Yeah.
to be more observant, more strategic, more in control of, our own lives.
It's almost like it's not about finding ourselves, it's about creating ourselves.
Ooh, I like that. Very profound. And speaking of creating ourselves, as we wrap up this deep dive, I want to leave you with a thought. We talk about so many skills, observation, deception, all of it. But the real question is, how are you going to apply all of this?
What's your spy mission going to be?
Are you going to focus on, say, becoming a better communicator, more aware of your surroundings, a master of strategic thinking?
It's up to you.
So embrace the challenge, everyone. Tap into that inner spy and see what you're truly capable of.
And on that note, I think it's time to wrap up this incredible deep dive into Think Like a Spy. We've had so much fun exploring these ideas with you, and we hope you've picked up some valuable insights along the way.
Definitely. It's been a blast.
And remember, this is just the beginning of your journey. Keep those spy skills honed, keep practicing, and who knows what you might achieve.
Until next time, happy spying.
Stay curious, stay sharp, and we'll see you on our next deep dive.